Yo, what's going on YouTube? Today I'm gonna show y'all some different variations for like chromatic notes that you will come across in a major scale. So if we look at the key of C, you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So these are your tonal notes in the scale, but then you see you have these 5 notes right here. So just knowing the chord quality of each one of these notes, you got major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and diminished. But how I like to look at the 7 is a 5/7, because usually that's what we play. But it's still, if you played it like that, it's still like a G7, because it's going 5-1 or 7-1. So G goes to C, the diminished B diminished will go to C, but a B diminished is really the colors of a G dominant chord, G dominant 7 chord. So you got your 3, 5, and your minor 7. So you got to know those chord qualities, because sometimes when you borrow, and because that's really what we're doing when you add in these notes, we're going to be borrowing from different scales. But I feel like it's good to know the different options that you have when you're playing in any key. So if this is our one, C major, just a regular C major triad, we're gonna keep these chords simple, and then we're gonna put a note on each. We're gonna put a chord on each note, just going up chromatically. So we got a 1 to a sharp 1 or a flat 2. So over this C sharp, we could play an A major over that. And then it takes us to the 2 of C, which is D minor. Now, think about the chord, think about your destination chord. The progression is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and back to 1. These are passing chords to get you to those different degrees. So if we 1, sharp 1 is taking me to 2 minor, and then we're gonna do a sharp 2, and it's taking me to E minor. So now we're talking about borrowing now, because what we talked about in the beginning, G takes you to C, A takes you to D, B would take you to E. So if E minor is my third chord that I'm going to, I can use a B major chord to get me to this E minor. So I'm really borrowing from like a E harmonic minor scale, which would be E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, and then this note right here, that D sharp, and it takes you to E. So the 5 of an E minor scale would be a B major chord. So let's do the progression again. 1, that's A over C sharp, takes us to our 2, which is D minor. Now the B, I do a regular major chord, but something else you could do is just make it a dominant. So you would throw, that adds more color to it. Let's do it again. A, D minor, B dominant 7, with D sharp in the bass, and this takes you to E minor, and then to your 4 of C, which is F. Now a sharp 4 is a few chords you could do. Let's start out with just playing like we're gonna keep playing it like we've been playing the other one. So a D major. So if you look at the pattern that we're using, major chords with the 3rd in the bass. So for this note, we play A. This is the 3rd of that chord. If you see, I'm playing in a root position in my right hand. It's technically in first inversion, because whatever's in your bass determines the inversion that you're in. We playing a B with D sharp in the bass. So another triad. And then what we got here, D with F sharp in the bass. So let's get up to that point. So this will take us to a 5. Yeah. And then same thing, if what would this note be the third of? So G sharp is the third of E. So E would be our chord. A minor. Now this where it would change, because I'm going to play it the way we've been doing the other ones, but you're going to hear that it's not going to sound the best. So here we go. And then I'm just going to finish it out. Now when we got here, this one will be tricky because you actually throwing in the whole chord is chromatic notes that don't belong to the key of C. So if it fits, it fits. But technically, if you're playing, it just really takes it all the way somewhere else, you know. So I just wouldn't choose that chord. So over the flat 7 or the B flat, like I said, it's a few things you could do. You can play it just as a regular triad. So if we came to, you could do that. It resolves. And then to see. Another option over the B flat, you can just play a 1 chord. So let's try that one. We're gonna start on the 5. So G, I didn't really like that either, but just showing you different options that you could use. What else could we do over that? We could try G minor and see how that sounds too. So to the 5, sharp 5, 6 minor, and then what else could you do over there? I'm trying to see different. I mean, if we went all the way, I don't want to go too far, but it is other chords that's coming to my mind, but we're not gonna do those because I want to show you some more stuff too. So that's like layer 1. So layer 2, if we did it again, so I could look at this, still building on the same chords that we played, but you can just add more, a little more extensions to it. So instead of going to A major, you can do, that's a A, still A, but it's more C sharp diminished, but really I'm looking at it like an A dominant 7 with a flat 9, because all of these are the extensions in that chord. I'm just not playing the A, so playing the 3 right here. So it technically would be a diminished chord, but I'm still thinking 5 to 1 because I know I'm going to D minor. So in my mind, it's like you have to know, you just have to know how chords travel. So your 1, sharp 1, diminished 7. And then the same thing for this chord. Instead of playing the B major, we're going to play the extensions of that chord, or the dominant chord. So you're going to have your dominant 7, a flat 9, a 3, and the 5. So, and it takes you right to that E minor. So all of these resolve perfectly because they're 5 to 1. Takes us to our 4. We can do another diminished for this to G. Now this, if you hear that, it makes me want to go da da, but that's not a G chord that I'm hearing. Watch the difference. I'm gonna play G first, and then I'm gonna show you the chord that will fit better. And then so listen to this next chord. So that was me going from. Now listen to this chord. I'm altering the tonal chords now. Where how I'm voicing them. Now listen. That sounds better. So I'm doing a 1/5. It sounds better. I don't know. It's sometimes the voice leading for different chords that you play, it takes you somewhere else. So when instead of playing the D major resolves better to G, but that diminished, to me, it resolves better to C. But I'm still keeping my G in the bass. So it goes, and keep the same chord. So this will become diminished as well. And that moves perfectly to A minor. Same chord. I would just do like a, so that's like another layer you can use. Now, going back to this note right here, sometimes, like I said, when you play certain chords, it takes your ear, it makes me want to play different stuff. So I wouldn't even, if I went to this chord, I would do this, because listen to how this sounds. It sounds churchy. Listen to this. Now, this is in church, we would do, instead of going to a B flat major or a C over B flat, that chord is better. And then I wouldn't even go to the 7. You would go back to the 5. And then I could go here. So it's like I have to set myself up to get to that 7. To make the 7 sound better or resolve better, it's like you have to travel a little bit. So let me show y'all that stuff. So I'll break it down a little slower. So 1 major, 2 diminished 7. I mean sharp 1 diminished 7. 2 minor. Let's go. Sharp 2 diminished 7. 3 minor, 4 major, just regular major triads on that. Sharp 4 diminished 7. 1/5. A sharp 5 diminished 7 to 6 minor. And then we're doing a 4 minor 6. So this chord over the B flat. And then 1/5 again. And now we can go to our next chord, which is the 5/7. And back to our 1. So I hope that helped y'all. Just some ideas that you can use, and you want to apply these to every key. So you know your options. If you look at each one of these, we'll say the first 4 notes in the major scale. So let me go to a different key so we can break it down. So we in A flat. So A flat, you got A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, and A flat. So if you look at, see, C is better because you can kind of just, you know, these are your tonal notes, and then these notes stick out. I can see it in A flat, but I'm just going to try to explain it the best I can, so we can at least have it in 2 different keys. That's your 1. Your next note is this. So remember, we looking at the chromatic notes like they're the 3rd of a major chord. So A will be the 3rd of F. So if we do, it would takes us to our 2 minor, B flat minor. Then this would take us to G major. And then C minor. To our 4. This D will be a B flat chord, or 3rd of B flat. And then 5. Over the sharp 5, we can do a 3 major. And then to our 6. Now remember, this is where it changed. We wouldn't play a D major over this. So we, like I said, we could do a flat 7 to E flat over G and to the 1. So this is what I wanted to say. In A flat, these first 4 chromatic notes are all major chords you playing over for the first layer, and then they just become diminished after that. And then this one note right here, remember that we play that either flat 7, a major chord, or we can do a 1 over this, or we do a 4 minor depending on when we get to the diminished chord. So if we did so that's the 1 over 5. Then this will take us to that E diminished to our 6, and then back to this takes us to that 4 minor, and then back to the 1 over 5, A flat over E flat, and then we can do E flat over G. Takes us back to our progression. So remember, once we get to this one with the diminished chords, we have to use different chords to kind of get us back on track. So it's like you have to travel a little bit to make it sound pleasing to the ear. Because if you just did, it sounds okay, but you know, you want music to sound as good as you can make it sound so that it just flows better